Welcome back to Flying Solo with Kat. And today is going to be just kind of a quick video. I want to talk about Reva, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and Ian McGregor kind of talking about Obi-Wan Season 2. I've had a couple of thoughts on this for a long time, and Reva is one of my top 5 characters. I actually have her Funko, I have a Topps card, I have her Black Series as well. I really want to try to see if I can get her saber if she gets one for Disney. That would definitely be my next one, but she's always been a character that I've very much connected with and someone who I really want to see more of. So that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. Before I get started, I did see a comment on my last video talking about the audio. I turned it up a little bit for this episode. Honestly, when I view it on my end, it is perfectly fine. So I would definitely implore you guys, if you could turn up your audio, please do that if you can. Again, I really wasn't having any issues on my side, and of course it is a tiny bit low, but of course I turned up my volume and it was perfectly fine. So please try to see if it's your own volume, because there is not much I could do on my end after I already turned up the audio volume on the website basically that I use. So please, let me know if you're still having issues, but unfortunately there's not much that I can do on that front. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So Reva is a really interesting character in the sense of people were thinking that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was going to be mainly about her, and then Obi-Wan was going to have a little bit of a part in it. But I was happy with the Obi-Wan Kenobi show that it was about Obi-Wan. That's the whole point. Granted, do I want to see more from Reva? Absolutely. Her entire story in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, her being the one to tell Obi-Wan that Anakin is still alive, basically that he's Darth Vader, is I think really important, and a lot of people downplayed it for some reason. She's a very important character if she kind of set in the motion of, Obi-Wan and Anakin's relationship after Revenge of the Sith. Her relationship with the Inquisitors and her being a youngling back when Anakin was going against invading the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and killing all the younglings. Reva saw her friends, her, very, very close brothers and sisters die by the hands of Anakin. And the fact that she was saved, as we've seen, right? She has the potential to become an Inquisitor, was shocking. And we've not really seen that, especially for a youngling, to kind of go through that and come out on the other side. Her motivation, I remember watching Obi-Wan Kenobi series at first, and I remember being confused by her motivation. Did she want Obi-Wan? Did she want Vader? What did she really want? But when we have kind of her standoff, right, with all the other Imperial troopers and talking with Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan realizes that she only tries to get close to Obi-Wan so she can draw Anakin, and that she can formally fight him and kind of avenge her brothers and sisters. And you start to see how beautiful that is in a story sense of what that means to her character and what that means to Obi-Wan as well. I think that's when he starts to see, okay, wow, you're actually a person. I understand your pain. Granted, is this the best way to go about it? Absolutely not. But I see you, I hear you. And he even offers to kind of help her and fight, not with her. Fight with her against Vader, but of course she doesn't really take up that offer and wants, of course, to look like she succeeded in the eyes of the Empire, in the eyes of the Grand Inquisitor, in the eyes of Vader. She has that fight with Vader, and of course it is amazing. The choreography was really, really well done. I liked how he stopped her lightsaber with his hand. It was so sick. And then, of course, she gets stabbed. And this is where people were like, oh my god, I can't do it. Star Wars, you suck. I don't get why Maul can do it, and then you have another character, mainly when it's a female, um, have the same exact thing, and fanboys lose it because it doesn't make any sense. Now, granted, for Reva made it a little, it made more sense with her anger. She's surviving off of anger, very much like Maul. When it came to Sabine, that one I think we could have done without, but I'll still argue that that wasn't a bad choice to put it in because she got medical attention right away. But with Reva, honestly, I understand that she's surviving off of anger. When she goes after Luke, when she goes to the Lars homestead, she is not doing too hot, right? She traveled the desert trying to find them, and she's clutching at her side. She's panting heavy. And Moses Ingram, for one, amazing actress. I love her so much. But she gave that made Reva so much more real because, yeah, she got freaking cut in half and she's surviving off of adrenaline and anger alone. So just that subtle little panting or her clutching at her waist was really well done. And then I didn't understand why people were still mad. I'm like, clearly she's in pain, which is why she really, I don't think she went after Beru and Owen and why she wanted to go after Luke, right? And what was special about her going after Luke, and of course she pulls him down off the rocks, and Luke is just sitting there, kind of in a sleep, right? And then she looks down at him and it reminds him of her, and she gets flashes of her younger self, and I'm like, oh, that is really good. And I remember this show giving like a warning that it was a very intense scene, and that was because of kind of what had happened the week prior, which I don't really want to talk about, but how they handled child death and trauma was well done, and I thought was really done in a unique way that I hadn't much seen for Star Wars. We really haven't seen a youngling story from the point of view of the youngling in the Jedi Temple that was there the day Anakin was, going sicko mode. So that already is so unique and something that is we don't see a lot. She ends up bringing Luke back. She makes the right decision. Obi-Wan is like, oh my god, thank God. And there, honestly, I was nervous. I remember the first time watching the finale and she was carrying Luke's body back, even though I knew Luke was alive, right? Because, of course, he has to come back. I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh, what did she do to Luke? And whatever. And, of course, he was okay, and how Beru and Owen kind of look over him. And this is the scene that I always come back to with Obi-Wan and always gets me is how she just lays in the sand. She throws her saber out in front of her. The score is I'm getting chills even talking about it. The score is beautiful as well. And she just breaks down. And she says that she wants to avenge them and that she failed them. Whew, I'm literally getting chills. The finale, just with that scene, makes me so emotional, and I don't really know why. I mean, mainly it's because she put so much pressure on herself, and she was fueled by that anger and that hate and that longing. And in the end, she made the right decision, but she feels terrible about it because she feels like she did fail all those other younglings that were her brothers and sisters, that were her training mates and her masters, and they're all dead. And she blames herself for, one, not avenging them, but secondly, for being too cowardly and weak to complete the job. And how Obi-Wan tells her that you're free now, and that along the lines of you made the right choice. And just how Obi-Wan shows that compassion to her and she accepts it is something so beautiful, and something that I think was really overlooked in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series because it was mainly Reva as a character. but Obi-Wan has such an impact on her. And I mean, it's Obi-Wan. He has such an impact on so many people. But you really take a look at how Reva was feeling and Obi-Wan's impact. I mean, come on. So that final scene, again, Obi-Wan Kenobi finale is the only finale that I will go back and watch just to feel something. Because between the Obi-Wan and Vader fight, Vader talking with Palpatine, and then the entirety of Reva's scenes are beautifully done. And then, of course, Obi-Wan with Leia at the end. The finale of Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of the best episodes in a Star Wars series entirely. I think it even kind of beats out Andor in a couple of episodes. People are going to be mad at that I said that in the... But it's true. It really is true, because the amount of emotion and the amount of payoff that happens in that final episode, I do think it is better than some of the episodes in Andor. I do. And I will die on that hill. I'll have to just talk about the finale of Obi-Wan Kenobi in an episode, because there's so much that just works for it. And even though the rest of the show is kind of hit or miss, you cannot deny that the finale is really well done. So let's get on to Reva. Like, we, of course, know that much of her character, but I feel like there's so much more that we can look into, and for her to go places. I would love if she was trained by Obi-Wan. I would love if Obi-Wan took on another Padawan while Luke was still growing up. Luke, I think, is about 7 or 8. He's either 7 or 8, or he's 10. I think he might be 10. So I'm not quite sure where that would fit in on the timeline, but I would love if Obi-Wan taught Reva. Another thing too, the path. The path was kind of touched on in Obi-Wan Kenobi. It was mainly touched on, though, in, I believe, the Saz Ventress and Quinlan Vos book. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the path is very important, right? Especially to Quinlan Voss's character, but a lot of the Jedi. I do think that we might see the path in the next Jedi game with Cal Kestis. I do think that might be influenced a little bit, but a lot of people are thinking that Reva will have an impact on the path, and she might go and find some other younglings, or save some people like her that have kind of turned to the darker ways of the Force, and she wants to bring them back. I think that would be a really good healing story for her, as well as some other characters that we could either be introduced to or see again, especially with Ventress as well. Now, granted, I know she's kind of with the Bad Batch, she's also not, so I think that we could do a Ventress Reva story, and I would lose my damn mind, because I think that is a great idea. But I don't really know if I think those two characters fit, but almost too well. I don't know how they would do in a story setting. I want a Reva series. I want to see some new characters. I want to see more development. I love Ian McGregor. I love Hayden Christensen. But when it comes to an Obi-Wan season 2, I personally don't think they need it. Ian McGregor was talking about the Clone Wars armor, and I know Hayden has also talked about the Clone Wars armor. Or, of course he wore the Clone Wars armor in Ahsoka, so that could have had some tie-ins as well. But we've seen that in the Clone Wars. Animated Star Wars is Star Wars. Everyone, let's say it together. Animated Star Wars is Star Wars. Not everything needs to be live action. I would love new stories in animation, and I would love new stories in live action. Granted, I don't know if it's the same or not, because I would honestly love the entire trilogy, prequels, sequels, and OT animated. Not in entirety, but I would like little snippets, which of course we have Galaxy of Adventures, which is on YouTube, which kind of does that, and I love that type of animation style. So I wouldn't mind live action and animation, but we do not need to turn animation into live action. A lot of things, especially with Rebels, do not transfer that great with live action. We've kind of seen that with Ahsoka. I do think that they will get better with time. I do think maybe the Hera that we saw in Ahsoka is gonna change design a little bit more. Ezra as well. I think those contacts might go, or they might dilute them a little bit. Overall, I don't want to be a hater. Honestly, any Star Wars content I'm not going to be mad about. But I do want to kind of put it out there that we don't need it. Ian McGregor just saying, I want to work with Hayden again. That's great, my dude. And honestly, get the bag from Disney. But when you have shows like The Acolyte or, now Skeleton Crew that's coming out that probably might need a couple more seasons. And then, of course, because they're over budget and they're so expensive, Disney doesn't want to pursue them. But when it came with Obi-Wan Kenobi, look, I love Hayden and I love Ewan and everyone else, and they can get the bag, but they are getting paid a lot per episode. And I'm not saying to underpay your actors or anything like that. I don't want people to put words in my mouth, but when you're putting A-list actors together, or you're putting so many A-list actors together in a TV show, that gets very costly. People wondered why Acolyte cost so much money. For one, they used physical sets. That was probably one of the biggest things. Secondly, they got Lee Jung-jae. I'm sorry, but he is like one of the most famous people in Asia. I'm not quite sure which specific country, but they said it was really hard to get him. Money wise, he said he was open to it and he actually really liked the script, but I do remember them talking about the breakdown of what each person got paid, and yeah, he was paid the most. So half of your $300 million budget is going towards actors, which again sucks. That's why I'm always like, hire up and coming talent. Like, you don't know who's going to be the next Mark Hamill or next Harrison Ford. And Disney, you can afford those people. If they're bad, they're bad. Then don't renew the show. That is what it is. But if they're good, then you just made an up and coming star that is already connected to the Star Wars universe. So I get it. Ewan and Hayden, they want to do stuff together. I love them for that. But my guys, you gotta kind of, I don't think Disney is going to be paying you $1 million, to come back and play your roles. I do think that they will have other uses for you. So that's kind of my hot take. People are kind of hit or miss on that, but I like, of course, y'all know me. I like thinking into the industry. I like thinking into each episode, each TV show, how much it cost, who's working on it, what actors are going to be asking for the most money, because that's always interesting to me. A lot of people don't think about that in the sense of shows. They just say, oh yeah, no, I'd want that. I think Disney could do it. They have money. And it's like, it's not that simple, especially how Disney has been going. It's, unfortunately, it's hard to say. I do think an Obi-Wan series would bring in a lot of people because of the prequel love, which, I never want to hate on people for liking something, but I'm not a huge fan of the prequels, and I'm kind of sick of those types of stories. I do think Clone Wars was a bit of a burnout for me. I think I'm just done. I love Bad Batch, but as well, that felt very much like a prequel story, even though it was kind of set after the prequels. Give us more sequel content. And hey, almost 10 years of The Force Awakens. Yay, I'm so excited. Next year we are doing a lot of Force Awakens content, hopefully. But Disney realizes what's going to make them the most money. And unfortunately, that might be an Obi-Wan Kenobi show, or an Obi-Wan season 2. I don't know if it's going to be a Reva show, but I would love her to come back, and I'd love her to make her own show. And I think that's just the wider scope of just where Disney's at right now, especially Lucasfilm. And I mean, literally look at the Acolyte of, if something is not making them money, they will not pursue it. Do a Reva short limited series. She doesn't need a full season. I just kind of want to know more about her maybe after meeting Obi-Wan. If there is an Obi-Wan season 2, I don't know if I'd want her to show up unless Obi-Wan was training her as a Padawan. People want Liam Neeson to show up as Qui-Gon and be there for a couple episodes. Do you know how much Liam Neeson would ask to show up in each episode. I mean, I remember, God, this was back when The Force Awakens came out, and I remember seeing it. I did see it. Again, I didn't recall anything from the movie, but I remember people talking. And of course, Mark Hamill is at the end and just standing there. And I remember someone turning to me and said, "How many millions of dollars do you think Mark Hamill got paid to just stand there on a hill?" And that has always been a quote that has stuck with me, funny enough. And it's how I've kind of viewed a lot of A-list actors in the industry of, if your TV show revolves around Liam Neeson being there to train Obi-Wan, you will pay him whatever the hell he wants, because that is the vision and that is the show. Granted, not billions of dollars, not more than you can handle, but they will pay him millions to show back up, and he will do it. He will do it complaining because, again, they're paying him. He doesn't care. But I think overall, there's not much you could do after that. They're either in the show or they're not in the show, and who's better at what. So overall, would love to see Reva again. I'm not too sold on an Obi-Wan season 2 unless she is in it and unless she's the focus. But overall, I love Ewan and I love Hayden, and I loved seeing them at New York City Comic Con and LA Comic Con. I think they were also there as well. So I love that they're going to cons. I love that they're talking with fans. They're doing panels. That's great. They can get so much money from that. And I hope that they can do something outside of Star Wars together. But I don't know if we need more stories with Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. So anyway, y'all, thank you so much for listening. Let me know your thoughts on ObiWan and Anakin, Reva, Ewan McGregor, and Hayden Christensen, because I am very curious of what y'all think. So anyway, y'all, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you